Every day, Tom woke up early, hoping that today would be different. He lived in the quiet town of Maplewood, a place where dreams seemed big, but as always felt too far away. Tom had a good job as a librarian, a place filled with stories and magic, but he never felt good enough to take on new challenges. His mind was a storm of doubt. Whenever he looked in the mirror, the reflection whispered back that he would fail if he tried something new. At work, Tom watched as his coworkers easily spoke up in meetings. They shared ideas and laughed together, while he sat quietly by the window. Every time he thought of joining in, a voice in his head told him to stay silent. He felt stuck in a box made of worry. Even simple tasks, like asking a patron for feedback, seemed monumental. He avoided eye contact and kept his head down, afraid of what others might think. After work, Tom would walk home along Maplewood streets. The trees had turned golden and orange, yet their beauty felt out of reach. He would see children playing and parents chatting, and deep inside, he yearned to join them. But each time he tried to step forward, his heart raced with fear, pulling him back into his shell. He was always questioning, always worried, always imagining the worst that could happen. One chilly evening, as he sat in his small apartment, surrounded by books but feeling disconnected from their stories, Tom noticed a book on his shelf that he had read years ago. It was about a hero who left a cycle of doubt behind to help others. Inspired, he picked it up and began to read. The words flowed and filled him with warmth and hope. Perhaps he could change. The thought lingered, casting a light into his dark corners. If he could be brave, even for a moment, maybe he could find peace. One sunny morning, while cleaning up his apartment, Tom stumbled onto a small, dusty box in the corner of his closet. Curious, he opened it and found a collection of old letters and postcards. Among them was a postcard from his childhood, a picture of an adventurous mountain scene. On the back, a phrase was scribbled in messy handwriting: "Believe you can, and you're halfway there." Tom stared at the words, a spark igniting in his heart. He remembered that as a child, he was always eager to explore. He loved climbing trees and chasing dreams, but somewhere along the way, the joy faded. He felt lost in a world of rules and expectations, where self-doubt had become his constant companion. As he continued to sift through the box, he came across a small book titled "Finding Your Inner Strength." Intrigued, he flipped it open. Each page was filled with stories of people like him, individuals who faced fear but chose to take a step forward anyway. Their stories about overcoming challenges and rising above their doubts caught Tom's attention. The more he read, the more he started to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. One story stood out to him. It was about a woman named Sarah who was afraid of public speaking. Like Tom, she often silenced her own voice and stayed in the background. But one day, Sarah decided to speak at a community event. She felt terrified, her heart raced, and her palms were sweaty. Yet, she stood in front of the audience and shared her heart. After that day, she felt a change. She discovered that facing her fears could lead to freedom. Tom put down the book, his mind racing. If Sarah could do it, then maybe he could, too. But just as quickly as the thought sparked inspiration, the old shadow of doubt crept back in. Could he really change? Was it too late for him? These questions looped around his mind like a storm. That evening, Tom went for his usual walk to clear his head. The sun was setting over Maplewood, casting a warm glow across the town. As he walked down the familiar streets, he thought about Sarah's story. He began to picture himself standing in front of a group of people, sharing ideas that mattered. But every time he imagined doing that, his stomach tightened with fear. The following days brought more struggles. At work, Tom watched as his colleagues easily collaborated on projects. He felt a pull inside him, a desire to contribute, but he remained silent. Each time a meeting came up, he was ready to speak, yet the words never made it past his lips. It was like the clouds of doubt wrapped around him, saying he wasn't good enough to share anything valuable. But something had shifted. Deep within, a faint flicker of hope ignited. Even though fear held him back, the image of standing strong began to form in his heart. With every step, he felt a tiny bit of his old adventurous self returning, trying to push past the doubt that had kept him within the wall. Each day, Tom learned to hold on to that flicker. He recited the words from the postcard quietly in his heart: "Believe you can, and you're halfway there." It reminded him of the strength he used as a child, the courage to climb high and dream big. Though self-doubt still loomed, he clung to hope, believing that change might be closer than he thought. That belief was, for now, enough to light his way through the shadows. As the days turned into weeks, the tiny flicker of hope in Tom's heart began to grow bigger. He became tired of feeling trapped in fear. The image of himself speaking up filled his nights with dreams. Finally, he decided that he needed to take a real step forward. After some thought, Tom made a bold choice. He signed up for a public speaking class at the local community center. When the day arrived for his first class, Tom's heart raced. He wore a fresh shirt and polished shoes, trying to look more confident than he felt. As he entered the class, the sight of other students filled him with anxiety. They all seemed so self-assured, chatting easily among themselves. Tom felt small and uncertain again, battling the thoughts that told him he didn't belong. As the instructor warmed up the group, introducing herself with a broad smile, Tom listened but could hardly focus. Each hello from his classmates sounded like a challenge. What was he doing here? The room felt hot, and the floor seemed to sway under his feet. But somewhere in the back of his mind, he remembered Sarah's story and the words about believing in himself. Tom took a deep breath. If he was going to be here, he wanted to try. Just being in the room was a win. Throughout the class, the instructor encouraged everyone to introduce themselves. When it was his turn, Tom felt the heat rise to his cheeks. But he took a moment and said what he had planned. "Hi, my name is Tom. I love reading, and I want to be better at sharing my thoughts." It wasn't perfect, and it only lasted a few seconds, but the small applause that followed filled him with a sense of accomplishment. It was his first small win. For the rest of the class, he slowly began to feel less nervous. He listened to others share their stories, and he realized everyone had their struggles. One by one, they all faced the same doubts that haunted him. Over the next few weeks, Tom faced challenges. There were moments when self-doubt crept back in, whispering that he would make a fool of himself. Before each class, his stomach would twist with worry. What if he stumbled on his words? What if no one listened? But with each challenge, he remembered that flicker of hope and the simple mantra, "Believe you can." In the classes, Tom began participating more and more. He worked on short speeches, driving himself to add a bit of personal experiences, building up his confidence step by step. One assignment was to speak about anything they loved. Tom chose to talk about his favorite books. As he stood in front of the group, he spoke about the characters, the adventures, and how much they meant to him. To his surprise, his classmates listened closely, nodding and smiling. When he finished, it felt like everyone's encouragement wrapped around him. They clapped, and for the first time, Tom felt proud of what he had shared. He may have stumbled on a few words, but it didn't matter. The feeling of connecting with others through his stories fed his growing confidence. As the weeks continued, he began to seek opportunities beyond the classroom. At work, he started sharing ideas during meetings. Each time he raised his voice, the familiar fear returned. Yet, he reminded himself of those moments in class when he had succeeded. Slowly, he noticed that his colleagues were receptive. They started to appreciate his suggestions. Each small victory pushed him further along a path of growth. With every step he took toward his goal, Tom felt that flicker of courage transforming into a warm, bright flame inside him. He was beginning to believe that he had more power over his life than fear ever would. One evening, as Tom was finishing up work at the library, he received an email that took his breath away. At the top of the message were the words, "Special guest speaker." The local community center was hosting an event about the importance of reading in shaping lives, and they wanted Tom to be one of the speakers. It felt like a dream, but within moments, that thrill was swallowed by a wave of panic. The event was only a week away, and the thought of standing in front of an audience sent shivers down his spine. Although he had made progress in his public speaking class, this opportunity seemed far more significant. The stakes felt higher. Could he really share his thoughts with a bigger crowd? Doubts crept in faster than ever, wrapping around his mind like vines, blocking his path to confidence. Tom spent the following days in emotional turmoil. He kept replaying the moments he had shined in class, but those memories felt like the flicker of a small candle in the face of a roaring storm. What if no one cared about what he had to say? What if he stumbled over his words or worse, was met with silence? As he practiced his speech in his apartment, he could see each flaw amplified in his mind. His voice trembled as he rehearsed in front of the mirror, and he kept losing track of his thoughts. The nights grew heavy with uncertainty. Thoughts chased around his head, making sleep nearly impossible. Tom began to avoid looking at the email inviting him to speak, fearing it would remind him of the challenge ahead. He wanted to push it away, to revert back to his comfortable, quiet life where he wouldn't face the judgment of others. But deep down, he also craved the feeling of growth. He didn't want to turn this opportunity down. The day before the event, Tom sat alone in his favorite reading nook, staring out the window as the sunset painted the sky. His heart felt heavy in his chest, filled with worry and fear. He could hear the world outside, a place filled with laughter and people living their dreams. As he reflected on his journey, he couldn't help but think of the stories that had inspired him. Sarah, the brave woman from his book, echoed in his mind. She had faced her fears for the sake of passion and connection. Suddenly, he felt a small shift inside him. What if he approached this speech not as a performance but as a chance to connect with others? What if it was an opportunity to share his love for reading, just like he had done in the class? Slowly, an idea began to form. He would share his personal story, the journey from his childhood dreams to this moment. It was his truth, and perhaps others could find something meaningful there too. With renewed purpose, he grabbed a notebook and began to jot down his thoughts. He scribbled about the magic of stories, the power of words, and how they had impacted him, feeding his spirit when he felt alone. Just as the doubts rushed back in, he fought them off with every word he wrote. The clock ticked away, and morning dawned with promise. Tom woke with a mix of excitement and fear, swallowing his nervousness like a bitter pill. He dressed with care, looking into the mirror as he repeated to himself, "You can do this. Speak from your heart." But each step toward the community center felt heavier than the last. Could he overcome this significant challenge and finally claim his space in the world? With his heart racing, he walked toward the event, ready to face the unknown that awaited him. When Tom arrived at the community center, the warmth of the evening sun shone down on him, but the cool air bit at his anxiety. He walked through the entrance, where excited chatter filled the room. Tables were set up with books, refreshments, and bright decorations. Yet, among the buzz, Tom felt entirely alone as shadows of doubt echoed in his mind. Everyone else appeared like seasoned speakers, while he felt like an imposter. Tom was ushered to a corner of the stage to prepare, where he could hear the crowd filling up the seats. The sound of their conversations turned into a buzzing noise, making his knees weak. A knot formed in his stomach, and he could barely focus. Fear started tightening its grip, whispering harshly that he wasn't good enough and that he would embarrass himself in front of everyone. In a desperate attempt to shake off the fear, Tom closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Moments before he would go on, he remembered his key mantra, "Believe you can." He recalled how Sarah had managed to scrounge up her courage. With that thought buzzing in his heart, he identified the good things in his life that reading had given him, the stories, the characters, and the connection they created with the world around him. This was the moment he needed to embrace the opportunity, not just for himself but for everyone who loved stories. When he heard his name being called, a chill ran down his spine. His heart pounded rapidly. Legs like jelly, he stepped up to the microphone. The room fell silent as all eyes landed on him, a spotlight cutting through the air and landing firmly on Tom. He glanced out at the crowd, searching for friendly faces, hoping for a sea of approval. A wave of nerves crashed over him, making him feel lightheaded. For a brief moment, he wavered, doubt creeping back in as he remembered all the times he had been afraid in the past. But in that moment, something inside him stirred. This was his chance to connect, to share the hope that stories had brought into his life. Tom cleared his throat, took a deep breath, and began, "Hi everyone, my name is Tom. Today, I want to share with you how the world of stories has lifted me from the shadows of doubt." As he spoke, he tried to focus on the message rather than the audience. The words flowed more easily than he had expected. He shared how, as a child, he had always dreamed of climbing greater heights and becoming someone who inspired others. Each sentence he delivered was filled with heart, and slowly, he could sense the energy in the room shift. In the back of his mind, he noticed elements of fear still clinging on. However, he refused to let it take control. His voice grew steadier with each passage. Tom described the power of characters who faced their own challenges and how they reminded him that courage lived within everyone, including him. As he told his story, he saw nods of understanding from the audience. It was exhilarating, he was connecting. The remaining doubts faded away like a distant storm. He spoke passionately about how reading taught him that it was okay to be vulnerable, and through that vulnerability, he could share pieces of his own heart. At that point, Tom realized he had transcended the overwhelming fear that had kept him trapped. He was no longer just speaking in front of a room full of people, he was engaging in a community. His nervousness transformed into determination, fueling every word he said. In that moment, Tom understood that change was within reach when he opened himself up to both the fear and the joy of confronting his challenges. With his story completed, applause erupted around him, washing over his nerves like a warm embrace. He had faced his fear head-on, shared his truth, and emerged with a newfound sense of hope and freedom. As the applause filled the room, Tom's heart raced, not from fear, but from sheer exhilaration. He smiled broadly, feeling a rush of warmth wash over him. He had done it, he had faced his fear and shared his story. The cheers from the audience surrounded him like a protective blanket, pushing away the last of his self-doubt. After he stepped away from the stage, people began to approach him, their faces glowing with appreciation. One woman, with bright eyes and an eager smile, shared how his words had touched her. "You reminded me of why I started reading in the first place," she said, and her kind words made Tom's heart swell. Each interaction felt like another tiny victory, reaffirming that his voice mattered. As the evening continued, he mingled with the crowd, hearing more about how many were moved by his speech. They shared their personal stories about the books that had helped them through hard times, and in turn, he felt himself growing stronger. Each conversation further dismantled the walls of isolation he had wrapped around himself. It was apparent that he was not alone, there were others who felt the same way, who had also struggled with their own doubts. Time slipped away as laughter and connection filled the air. Tom found that his old fears had shrunk to a manageable size. No longer were they barriers blocking his path, they were reminders of how far he had come. He began to realize that failure and success did not define him, the act of trying and putting himself out there was the real victory. Later that night, as Tom returned home, he felt a sense of contentment flowing through him. For the first time in a long while, he was not just a man with doubts but a person with experiences to share. His mind raced with reflections on the journey he had embarked upon. The comfort of his old life felt distant, as he embraced the spirited man he had become. In the following days, Tom noticed a shift in his habits. Encouraged by his experience, he decided to seek out more chances to speak. He began signing up for workshops and engaging more with his colleagues at the library. Where he once felt choked by fear in meetings, he now actively contributed more to discussions, his ideas flowing with newfound confidence. Tom started to write more, documenting his feelings and thoughts, crafting stories to share not only with others but also for himself. Each time he poured his heart into the pages, he felt the power of his own voice resonate even stronger. Writing, which had once been a simple escape, now became a tool for deeper connection with himself and those around him. With every step he took, resilience grew. Although he still experienced moments of self-doubt, they were no longer paralyzing. Instead, he faced them with a calm understanding, remembering that fear haunted every person, even those who appeared confident. Tom learned to lean into those moments, turning them into opportunities for growth rather than excuses to retreat. He found it easy to remember the woman from the event and the families he had shared with that night. They had connected through words, and he would never again underestimate the strength in being vulnerable. Each small win mattered, and he was becoming someone he admired, a voice that continued to reach out, inspire, and uplift others. As the days turned into weeks, Tom began to look forward to the future. He wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. Hope now rooted deeply in his heart, reminding him that he could continue growing, facing challenges with courage and confidence. No longer content to hide in the shadows, he stepped boldly into the light, fully aware of the endless possibilities that awaited him. In the days following the event, Tom felt a sense of change swirling around him. Each time he caught a glimpse of his reflection, he noticed a small yet significant shift in his demeanor. His posture was straighter, his smile wider, and his eyes sparkled with a light they hadn't held for quite some time. He carried the energy of his successful speech like a warm glow, brightening even the ordinary moments of his day. However, the path forward wasn't without its bumps. One afternoon at the library, a crisis emerged. The library director announced that several staff members, including Tom, would need to lead a new reading initiative designed to engage local schools. The thought of addressing a group of educators made his stomach flip. Fear crept in, whispering reminders of the small voice that had held him back for so long. What if I don't measure up? What if I fail? Yet, today's Tom had something that he hadn't before, a belief in himself. Instead of allowing the fear to take control, he paused to reflect. Tom reminded himself of the speech and the power of sharing his story. He embraced the lessons he had learned about growth and connection and realized that this would be another opportunity to build on his success. He saw this challenge as a chance to use the skills he had developed to help others. As he prepared for the initiative, he focused on personal development, finding ways to step outside his comfort zone. He wrote notes and sought feedback from his colleagues who had also participated in the event. Tom shared ideas with them, discussing ways to make the readings engaging for children. With each discussion, he felt lighter and more at ease, replacing the echoes of doubt with a sense of purpose. Days turned into preparation as Tom shaped his ideas. He nurtured the belief that he could turn this event into something meaningful for the schools and students involved. Each time he moved forward, acceptance of his abilities grew, like a tiny seed sprouting into a vibrant plant. He held onto his mantra, "Believe you can," and repeated it often as a reminder of how far he had come. The day of the initiative arrived faster than he expected. As he greeted the students and educators, nerves quickly turned to excitement. Tom initiated conversations, blending encouragement with stories he knew would inspire younger readers. Instead of often becoming tongue-tied, he wondered aloud which tales inspired them, creating a bridge of connection that flowed effortlessly across the room. While standing before the audience, Tom shared insights into the stories he loved. The kindness of characters, the bravery of heroes, and the beauty of adventures became a thread that wove everyone together. The children asked questions, their faces lit with curiosity, and he soaked in the enthusiasm surrounding him. Despite his earlier fears, Tom realized that he now possessed tools to navigate these challenging moments. When he returned to work, colleagues noticed the shift in him. Their praise turned from polite acknowledgement to genuine recognition of his growth. Each compliment fueled his self-esteem, gradually erasing the whispers of doubt that had previously clouded his mind. He reveled in the small successes day after day, each one enhancing the tapestry of his self-belief. Throughout this period, Tom frequently paused to reflect on how his mindset had shifted. He understood that growth does not happen overnight, it takes effort and persistence. He cherished the moments when setbacks occurred, as they reminded him that everyone is on their personal journeys, much like his own. The feelings of discomfort or hesitation no longer felt like barriers, they were simply elements of the path towards understanding who he was becoming. As he embraced his role in the reading initiative with an open heart, Tom felt more empowered each day. He was learning not just to face challenges, but to see them as opportunities for connection and growth. Resilience built within him, giving him the strength to move toward the next adventure, transforming hesitation into energy. He welcomed every new opportunity, confident that he was capable of navigating whatever lay ahead. With each new day, Tom found himself increasingly aware of the journey he had taken. The spark that once felt so distant now burned brightly within him, inspiring not just personal growth but also a desire to share his knowledge with others. After witnessing the positive effects of his work in the reading initiative, he felt a strong pull to help others who might be struggling with their own self-doubt. One afternoon, while meeting his friend Amy for coffee, Tom noticed her looking troubled. As they chatted, he learned that she had wanted to apply for a new job but was hesitating due to fear of rejection. This situation reminded him of his own struggles. He listened carefully as she shared her worries, and an idea began to form in his mind. "Why don't we work on your application together?" he suggested gently, excitement bubbling within him. "You have so much talent and experience that would be valuable in that job." Tom offered to help her with her resume and to practice interview questions. Seeing Amy's nervous expression touched him, it was a reflection of his past self, uncertain and full of fear. As they sat together, Tom consciously chose to share the lessons he had learned. He encouraged her to identify her strengths and reminded her that facing fear was part of growth. They laughed together, brainstorming the unique qualities that made Amy an excellent candidate. For every worry she expressed, Tom provided a positive counterpoint. With each inspiring piece of advice, he felt more empowered, realizing that sharing his journey not only helped Amy but reinforced his newly found confidence. A week later, when Amy received an interview invitation, she embraced the opportunity with excitement. She invited Tom over in celebration, expressing sincere gratitude for his support. The moment was beautiful. Witnessing Amy's transformation made Tom heartened. He had kept knocking down the walls of fear within himself, and now had become a source of light for someone else. Buoyed by this experience, Tom considered expanding his reach further. He pondered the idea of a blog to connect with others who might feel alone in their struggles. With newfound determination, he set up a simple website where he could document his journey. Tom titled it Steps to Courage, and he began writing about the lessons he had learned understanding fear, the power of storytelling, and taking action despite feelings of doubt. His initial posts detailed his own vulnerabilities and victories. With clear and simple language, Tom wanted anyone reading to feel the warmth of support he had discovered in himself. Day by day, he wove personal anecdotes into his advice, presenting a roadmap for readers navigating their own self-improvement journeys. As he wrote, he reflected on how far he had come, recognizing that even small achievements could empower others. In addition to his blog, Tom decided to start a YouTube channel to offer a deeper connection. In his videos, he opened up in a way he had never done before. He spoke sincerely about the importance of facing fears, celebrating even the tiniest victories, and creating communities of support. Each video resonated with people seeking connection. Comments filled his feed, bringing messages that echoed not only appreciation but also stories of hope from his viewers. Through his content, Tom increasingly saw the ripple effect of inspiration. As his reach grew, individuals began to share how his words encouraged them to step out of their comfort zones, to pursue passions they had long buried beneath layers of doubt. With each positive message he received, his heart swelled with pride and humility. Tom began to realize the depth of the power he held. He was not just sharing stories, he was encouraging encounters with personal growth for others. The journey that had once felt solitary transformed into a shared experience, connecting him with those who stared their own fears in the face. As he witnessed other lives blossom, he understood that growth was meant to be shared and celebrated. As he looked back on his own transformation, Tom was filled with gratitude. The timid man who once feared speaking in front of a crowd had evolved into someone capable of guiding others along their paths. With each person he inspired, Tom felt himself grow further, his sense of purpose blooming. He was building a community rooted in shared courage, one echoing revelation at a time. In the months that followed, Tom found himself deeply entrenched in his mission of helping others while continuing to embrace his own growth. The feedback on his blog and YouTube channel illuminated how far he had come. Every view, comment, and message from followers served as a reminder of his commitment to both his journey and the journeys of others. He marveled at having gone from someone paralyzed by self-doubt to a beacon of hope for many. The more he connected with people, the more his confidence blossomed. He learned that personal growth comes with layers, each achievement built upon the last. Public speaking, once a source of anxiety, now became an avenue through which Tom shared insights and lessons that inspired others to take action. He counted success in small steps rather than grand gestures. The emails from his readers who found the courage to chase their dreams filled him with purpose and pride. His workplace quietly changed as well. Colleagues began seeking his input more often. This new dynamic allowed for collaboration and trust, breathing fresh life into the library projects. Tom, no longer a passive observer, stepped forward with ideas, presenting them enthusiastically in team meetings. The doubts that once loomed over him began to dissolve, replaced by a zest for making a positive impact on the community. Empowered by the responses to his work, he initiated a reading group for teens that merged his love for literature with mentoring. The project quickly gained traction, with many kids joining in, eager to connect through stories. As he collaborated with the teens, Tom saw glimpses of himself in them. Their excitement reminded him how magical and transformative stories can be. Each session filled him with warmth and fulfillment, letting him know he was now wielding the tools he had once sought for himself. He remembered his own journey, every question he had, every fear he had to face, and it made him a more empathetic guide. Seeing the kids' progress brought him joy, and in his heart blossomed an understanding. Personal development wasn't a solitary path, it was about connecting with and uplifting one another. Amidst this growth, Tom cultivated resilience. Challenges began to hold less power over him. He faced each one knowing that fear had become a trusted companion rather than an impenetrable wall. Tasks that would have once overwhelmed him, public presentations, new initiatives, or even one-on-one conversations, now felt enriched with possibility. Rather than dreading uncertainty, Tom learned to embrace it, viewing every obstacle as a chance for learning. The transformative energy that now enveloped Tom radiated into every aspect of his life. Friendships deepened, relationships strengthened, and connections flourished in a vibrant network of support and encouragement. This shift in mindset opened doors previously thought locked. He found excitement in uncertainty, welcoming the unknown with curiosity instead of apprehension. As Tom sat in his favorite nook at the library one sunny afternoon, he reflected on the journey he had undertaken. With gratitude taking root within him, he understood that personal growth was far from a final destination, but a lifelong journey meant to be continuous. Instead of settling, he embraced the fluidity of life and its challenges, honoring each step of the way. The changes in his mindset shifted his perception of success and fulfillment. Personal development flourished not just in what he achieved but in how deeply he connected with others. Filled with optimism, Tom closed his eyes for a moment, inviting his breath to settle. The feelings of warmth, resilience, passion, and purpose surged through him all at once. No longer bound by the limits of his old mindset, he truly felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. With each new day, he approached life with newfound courage and confidence, eager to dive into the adventures that awaited him, a journey paved with possibilities, dreams, and the strength of human connection.